Yo, what up? It's another episode of All Scoring and No Defense. And on today's episode, I have a guest that knows everything about scoring, especially when it comes down to basketball. I mean, his basketball analysis are just as good as his jump shot. And when it comes to football, this man has an all-around game. I played football against this gentleman, and it did not end well for me. The guest that I have today is Wilson Chaney. Wilson, how you doing today?
Yo, what's good, Tyus? Thank you for having me.
Oh, no problem. Thank you, man, for being on here. Now, Wilson, you have a podcast. What is your podcast about, and where can the listeners find your podcast at?
Well, my podcast is called In My Humble Opinion. You can find it on all streaming services such as Apple Music, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio. Any streaming platform out there, you can find the In My Humble Opinion podcast. And also on YouTube, I have a channel called Truly Humble Sports where I post all of my visual In My Humble Opinion episodes. Just recently, I'm kind of starting it back again after a little hiatus. So we're kind of getting the ball rolling on that end. So if you want to find me, you can find me on all those platforms.
Okay. Well, all right, Wilson, it's a lot of things going on in the sports realm, and I just want to talk to you about that. So I want to conduct a little interview. You ready?
Yes, sir. Let's get it.
All right, before I start the interview, I need to hear some noise from the crowd real quick. Hold on. All right, that's enough from you guys. Okay, let's go. The NFL has just released their power rankings, and they are, here's 1 through 5. You have Tampa Bay at number 1, Kansas City at number 2, Green Bay number 3, Buffalo 4, and Baltimore number 5. Me personally, I think Buffalo should be ahead of Green Bay because Buffalo is the more complete team. They have a better running game and a better passing game. My question for you, Wilson, is do you agree with these rankings? And if not, what is your rankings for the top 5?
Well, I mean, I feel like it shouldn't be a crime to have Tampa Bay number 1, judging that they just won a Super Bowl. But like you said, I feel like Buffalo should be a little higher than Green Bay because Josh Allen, he had a completely breakout year last year, and he's played extremely well throwing the ball. And you also have Stephon Diggs that had one of his rare 1,000-yard seasons, and he has emerged as one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. And not to mention Buffalo's defense has always been extremely consistent for these past 2 or 3 years. So if you look at the power rankings, yes, you could say Buffalo can be a little higher, but I'm not too mad about that. And you said Baltimore was at 5, correct? Or at 4?
Mm-hmm. They're 5.
Yes. Yeah, I'm not extremely mad at that either. I mean, judging that Lamar Jackson had a pretty decent year last year, but in the playoffs he kind of really didn't have a spectacular game, as some folks would say. But this is a team that's all about growth. And people keep forgetting Lamar is around 23, 24 years old, so he has a lot of time to grow at the quarterback position. But the only thing Baltimore really needs is that prominent weapon to help out Lamar Jackson. Because the receivers they have now with Hollywood Brown, Willie Snead, I mean, they're good, but they're not those dynamic players that can get you over the hump. And I feel like if Baltimore gets that one exact player, they could really be a threat in the AFC. But for right now, I'm kind of cool with where they're at.
Okay, I'm going to ask you 2 additional questions. Now, earlier today, Tampa Bay re-signed Ndamukong Suh. Do you think that's a good move for them, for this organization?
I mean, considering the fact that Ndamukong Suh is about like 34, 35 years old, I mean, it's okay, I guess. It's a good roster name move, but I shouldn't say it's something that moves the needle as much because Baltimore's defense is already pretty solid. So I feel like that just adds on to the fire that they already have. They already got guys like Levante David, Shaquille Barrett, that linebacker. I feel like they're already a solid team in general, but Ndamukong Suh, they kind of just add on to that defensive presence and that little intimidation factor, as you would call it.
Okay. All right. Second, now, earlier in free agency, Kansas City cut 2 offensive linemen who were starters. And we saw in the Super Bowl, if you can't protect Patrick Mahomes, he does you any good. So this is a bad move, and I want to get your thoughts on that. Does that hurt or help this team, cutting those 2 offensive linemen?
In a way, it does hurt because, like you said, if you don't protect Patrick Mahomes, he will be in trouble and he will have a game that he struggles. But with them adding on Joe Tooney, throughout free agency, I feel like that's another addition that could help out as well, because Eric Fisher and the other old linemen, they were extremely key factors to this team, but I feel like the free agents that's out right now, they could be easily replaced. And a lot of people did underrate their performance and how they helped the offensive linemen helping Mahomes, but I feel like with the replacements coming in, I feel like that void could be easily filled. And you also got to think about Patrick Mahomes' contract as well. A lot of guys on that Kansas City team are going to have to restructure their deals in order to accommodate. So I feel like it was extremely necessary to cut those O-linemen because, they have to make room. So Kansas City will add on to help out Patrick Mahomes eventually. Right. So right now I feel like those two losses aren't as big as a deal as what people make it seem. But we're going to have to see throughout free agency to see what happens.
All right. I like that. Okay, shifting gears. Victor Oladipo, Spencer Dinwiddie, Montrezl Harrell, DeMar DeRozan, along with Jeremy Grant. Those are players that are rumored to be on the trading block. And in the NBA, the trade deadline is coming up fast. Which team, if not team, should make a move so they can put them in better position to win a championship in the NBA?
Well, obviously, I know one team that has been in the recent news lately as far as the trade block is the Miami Heat. And one thing that a lot of people do know already is that I'm a big diehard Heat fan. And the way we're looking right now, I feel like we need to make one of those deadline moves in order to shift this team over the edge. Because despite these past 3 or 4 games, we were just on a 13, 14-game winning streak. We were just doing good for the month of February. So I feel like if we snag Oladipo without losing much of our core, that would be an extremely good win for us. Because I feel like the only thing that's holding us back from getting Oladipo is the certain key pieces that Houston wants from Miami. They're obviously asking for Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero, Precious Achiuwa, and other young guys that we have. But I feel like if we just give Houston that one little good deal that kind of sets them over the top and we snag over the Oladipo, that would help out Miami a whole lot. And also, you got to look at Kyle Lowry that's in the trade block too as well. We have been in rampant talks with Toronto about Kyle Lowry. And one of the main things is they want Tyler Hero. And we do have a history this year of being reluctant on giving up Tyler Hero due to future reasons, which I'm not upset at. But if you look at the way Tyler Hero's been playing all year, he has been kind of slipping up a little bit. But if you get contest clues, he's been hurt for most of the year, but that's neither here or there. But either of Miami snags Oladipo or Lowry, that could help our team out a whole entire bit. And especially with this season going towards this end course like it is right now, post All-Star break, it's important for us to snag one of those pieces. And Jeremy Grant, he's extremely intriguing to see where he's going to land at, because I heard Boston was in talks with Detroit. You can also look at a team like Brooklyn to see if they want to make that one more major key piece addition. I doubt it, but at the same time, that's not outside the realm of possibility. And it's just a lot of players on the trade block that is going to be moved quite fast before Thursday. So it's going to be really interesting to see how all this plays out.
Okay, interesting. I like that. All right. Free agency in the NFL isn't done, but it's about, we could say, 80 to 90% wrapped up. And we saw teams such as Cleveland, Tampa Bay, they did great in free agency, especially Tampa Bay, how they were able to keep everyone and not really throw out too much money. But then we saw other teams such as Chicago who did terrible, signing Andy Dalton, which made no sense. Wilson, I want to ask you, who are your winners and losers in this free agency for the NFL?
Winners and losers? Well, I would say my absolute winner is the New England Patriots. Because I've been saying for the whole entire year that Cam Newton needs significant help. And if you look at his receivers now, he has Kendrick Bourne now. He has Jonnu Smith at tight end, Hunter Henry as well. He also has Nelson Aguilar added on. And if you compare this team coming up to Tom Brady's last year in New England, it's a way better receiving core than he had. And if you rewind it back to last year, Cam Newton, he had COVID for most of the year, and his play has dropped off ever since he came back to the field. And along with that and his insignificant help, it was bound to be a down year. So I'm really glad New England strapped up and reloaded that team in order to give him that extra help that he deserves. So look out for them to make some noise next year, especially. And the biggest losers, like you said, I would say is Chicago, because them signing Andy Dalton just tells me automatically they're just going to go through a little revolving door at quarterback for the next 2 years, because they really banked on Mitchell Trubisky on being on a star player for their franchise. But obviously that didn't work out. And they really didn't make a lot of impressive moves during free agency. I know they signed this one cornerback. I can't think of his name at this point. But other than that, they didn't really make that much significant moves. And you franchise tag Allen Robinson, which means he's going to be due for a hefty deal next year. So I don't know what sense that made to a sense, but it's really disappointing to see how Chicago has not taken the time to beef up their lineup like they should be. So they might be on their way for a down year too. So I feel like those two are my winners and losers.
Okay. Good stuff. Now, my podcast is called All Scoring and No Defense. And in the NBA, two stars who are injured but are both great scorers, which would be Anthony Davis and Kevin Durant. And these two gentlemen have been out for a long time. But both of these gentlemen, their teams need them. Brooklyn needs Kevin Durant in order to win. In order to make it out of the East. And the Lakers need Anthony Davis in order to make it out of the West. My question for you, Wilson, is which team should be worried most about the health of their superstars? The Lakers with Anthony Davis or the Brooklyn Nets with Kevin Durant?
I feel like it'll be the Lakers by far, because if you look at Brooklyn's team, they still have Kyrie and Harden to worry about, and they just picked up Blake Griffin, so there's a little cushion for them to have towards the end of the season. But if you look at LA's situation, some people would say that's a little more dire than most teams, because you just lost LeBron on top of Anthony Davis, and now you have to rely on your young guys to pick up the slack. And right now, Kyle Kuzma, I don't feel like he has that dog or that grit to become that number one guy. But it's something I feel like that he's going to have to do, because one thing I always said about Kuzma that was his biggest flaw is the way he creates off the dribble. His lack thereof. So I feel like Kuzma, in this opportunity for these 3 or 4 weeks, he's going to be really put under a microscope to see if he's really the offensive player that people perceive him to be. Because if you look at the Lakers standing right now, they can easily fall to the 6th or 7th spot by the time those two come back. And that's a reality LA fans are going to have to grasp. And honestly, the way this West is and how cutthroat it is, you would like them to have a lower seed, because that means that they could probably match up with, a Utah or Phoenix, and then knock them out the way early and then move on and face lower ranking seeds for the rest of the playoffs. So either way you look at it, it could be a blessing or it could be a curse. But the Lakers, they are extremely in dire need of LeBron and AD. But these next few games are going to be really interesting to see how they respond to adversity.
True. That is true. Now, Seattle has been rumored to sign Antonio Brown. And this is why I like it. I think this will make a lot of sense, because Seattle has dealt with high personality players. You remember they had Richard Sherman, and Richard Sherman at one point was, I'm the greatest corner. Then they had Earl Thomas. Earl Thomas flicked off Pete Carroll on the field. And they had Marshawn Lynch. You remember that sense where he said, I'm just here so I don't get fined. I'm not talking to the media.
Mm-hmm.
So my question, Wilson, is should Seattle take a risk and sign Antonio Brown?
I don't see why not at this point. You're talking about a receiver that's bound to be despite all of his off-the-field antics and all of his personal issues, you have to realize that Antonio Brown is a Hall of Fame receiver. That's something you cannot deny. His performance in